ჯანსაღი კონკურენცია მომხმარებელს ხარისხის და ფასის ფართო არჩევანს სთავაზობს. კონკურენტთა შორის ფარული შეთანხმების შემთხვევაში ზარალდება მომხმარებელი. ხშირ შემთხვევაში იზრდება ფასი და მომხმარებელს ეზღუდება საუკეთესო არჩევანის შესაძლებლობა. თუ გაქვს ინფორმაცია კონკურენციის საწინააღმდეგო შეთანხმების შესახებ, შეგიძლია მიმართოს საქართველოს კონკურენციისა და მომხმარებლის დაცვის სააგენტოს. კონკურენცია ხელს უწყობს სამართლიანი ბიზნეს გარემოს ფორმირებას.
ჩინური ნაწარმის გამოფენა World Trade Expo 21-23 სექტემბერს ესტუმრეთ გამოფენას შეიძინეთ მრავალფეროვანი სამშენებლო მასალა, საყოფაცხოვრებო ნივთები, ავტონაწილები ან იპოვეთ მომწოდებელი თუ ბიზნეს პარტნიორი ჩინეთიდან.
ვინ გახდება ბარტას მფლობელი წელს? საუკეთესო წლიური ანგარიშის და გამჭვირვალობის ჯილდოსთვის განცხადებების მიღება დაიწყო. კონკურსში მონაწილეობა პირველი კატეგორიის კომპანიებისთვის და ასევე საზოგადოებრივი დაინტერესების მქონე ყველა პირისთვის ხელმისაწვდომია. განცხადებების წარდგენისვა და კომპანიებს 31 ოქტომბრამდე აქვთ. ბარტას წლევანდელი ჯილდოს მფლობელები 13 დეკემბერს დასახელდებიან.
26 ოქტომბერი საქართველოში საპარლამენტო არჩევნების დღეა. საარჩევნო უბანზე ყველა ადამიანს თავის ფუნქცია აქვს. უბანზე თქვენ დაგვხვდებათ ნაკადის მომწესრიგებელი, რეგისტრატორი და კომისიის სხვა წევრები. ერთ-ერთი მნიშვნელოვანი როლი კი ჩვენ, მიუკერძოებელ დამკვირვებლებს გვაქვს, რომელთა გარეშე საარჩევნო პროცესი სრულფასოვანი ვერ იქნება. ჩვენ ვიცავთ შენ ხმას, რომელიც შენი ძალაა. საია, არჩევნებზე მიუკერძოებელი დაკვირვების 30 წელი.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma. The Voice of America Georgian service reported that the U.S. State Department and U.S. Treasury are preparing a package of sanctions against Bidzina Ivanishvili, founder and honorary chairperson of the ruling Georgian Dream Party. The head of the Department of Special Tasks, Zviad Harazishvili, Hareba, and his deputy Miller Lagazauri, the founder of Altinfo, Konstantine Morgoshia and Zurab Maharadze, were sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department. In addition, the U.S. Department is taking additional measures to impose visa restrictions against more than 60 Georgians and their family members who participate in digging the roots of democracy in Georgia. Andrew Jewell, resident representative for Georgia at the International Monetary Fund, told the Checkpoints that under its mandate, IMF staff does not assess compliance with international sanctions and staff may not advise the authorities on whether to comply or not with international sanctions. We may assess the macroeconomic and financial implications of sanctions, compliance or non-compliance, and advise countries to make measures to mitigate the risks. In this context, to ensure that financial stability is protected, banks should not face a situation of ambiguity regarding their legal and compliance obligations and should be able to assess the implications of these obligations for their operations, Jewell said. The National Bank of Georgia on Wednesday highlighted its systemic supervision of the implementation of international sanctions as well as the enforcement of compliance to its own regulations and national legislation by individual participants for the domestic financial sector. The MBG also noted sanctions would apply to Georgian citizens when the country courts issued legally binding guilty verdicts based on the imposed sanctions. The central bank emphasized that Georgia was operating in full compliance with the requirements stipulated by sanctions. It asserted that the country had never been and will never become a place to evade sanctions. EasyJet, a British multinational low-cost airline, together with the British Airways, is set to enter the Georgian aviation market in 2025. EasyJet will operate direct flights from London, Geneva, and Milan to Tbilisi International Airport. The inaugural flight from Geneva is scheduled to arrive in Tbilisi on March 31st in 2025. Founded 20 years ago, EasyJet offers both domestic and international scheduled services on 927 routes across more than 34 countries. The airline is headquartered at London Luton Airport. Defense Ministry announced 144 million tender for Army City. This will be a continuation of the project that was launched in 2020. 39 seven-story residential blocks with 1,092 apartments were constructed for the soldiers at the Mahata Mount so far.
This is The Checkpoints. I'm Elena Kwantilashvili, author and the host of the show, and the Checkpoints team is ready to sum up Business and Economics Week for you. The USA has sanctioned Georgian officials and extremists for serious violations of human rights. The statement about this is issued by the U.S. Treasury Department. The U.S. Treasury Department statement says that the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control has imposed sanctions on 2 Georgian government officials and 2 private individuals in connection with the violent crackdown on peaceful demonstrators and political opponents. The head of the Department of Special Tasks, Viad Karazishvili Khareba, and his deputy Miller Lagazauri, the founder of Altinfo, Konstantine Morgoshia, and Zurab Makharadze, were sanctioned by the U.S. Treasury Department. Also, the U.S. State Department is taking additional measures in order to impose visa restrictions against more than 60 Georgians and their family members who participated in the Digging the Roots of Democracy in Georgia. Among them are government and municipal officials who abused their power to limit the fundamental freedoms of the Georgian people, businessmen involved in corruption, individuals who spread disinformation and promote violent extremism, law enforcement officers who participated in the beating of demonstrators, and members of parliament who played a crucial role in the promotion of undemocratic legislation and restriction of civil society. State Department's statement reads, on September 16, U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller held a briefing on the recent U.S. decision to impose sanctions and visa restrictions on Georgian officials and individuals accused of undermining democracy in the country. In addition, the spokesperson also addressed GD's recent announcement that it plans to apologize for the August 2008 war, stressing that Georgia has no need to apologize for Russia's invasion and occupation.
The United States remains deeply concerned by the ongoing anti-democratic actions of the Georgian government, which are incompatible with membership norms in the EU and NATO. In addition to the passage of the so-called foreign influence law, we have also seen the Georgian government repeatedly, violently crack down on Georgian citizens who protested that law. Today, the United States is imposing sanctions on 2 Georgian government officials and 2 leaders of a violent extremist group, as well as imposing visa restrictions on more than 60 Georgian individuals for their involvement in human rights abuses, corrupt practices, or other anti-democratic actions. These actions come as a result of our ongoing comprehensive review of all bilateral cooperation in Georgia due to persistent anti-democratic actions, as well as false statements by senior Georgian government leaders that are contrary to the spirit of our decades-long relationship with the government of Georgia. The Georgian government can recommit to its Euro-Atlantic trajectory by conducting free and fair elections, withdrawing and repealing anti-democratic legislation, and demonstrating significant and measurable progress on outstanding EU accession reform recommendations. The United States has been the biggest supporter of Georgia's economic and democratic development for the past 32 years. Our assistance has focused on making Georgia stronger, more prosperous, and a more capable country, or a country more capable of defending its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We hope that the government of Georgia will return to the path that its people so evidently desire.
Matthew Miller addressed the Prime Minister of Georgia as well. In the United States of America, unlike some countries in the world, the democratically elected government makes political decisions and no one else. This is how the press spokesman of the U.S. State Department, Matthew Miller, responded to the statement of the Prime Minister of Georgia regarding the fact that the U.S. sanctioned 4 citizens of Georgia, including the decision to sanction 2 high-ranking police officers, was not made by the administration of President Joe Biden, but by certain forces. Matthew Miller was asked what he thought about the fact that in response to the sanctions, the Prime Minister of Georgia said that it was not a State Department decision, but a decision made by other groups, and also released a statement from the Prime Minister's administration indicating that with this decision, the American side has approached the critical limit. In the United States, unlike some countries in the world, political decisions are made by the democratically elected government and no one else, Miller noted. Georgian people have overwhelmingly said that their future is a future with Europe and with the West, and actions and statements that isolate Georgia don't help that goal, stated the U.S. Ambassador to Georgia, Robin Donohue. According to the ambassador, the U.S. will continue to support the Georgian people and help make Georgia a stronger, more economically prosperous country that will join the EU.
Look, I'm just going to make a very brief statement, which is actions by the Georgian government, recent anti-democratic actions, disinformation about the United States and the West, and statements, as the statement that the Prime Minister made yesterday, none of that helps Georgia or the Georgian people. Taking actions and making statements that further isolate Georgia from the West, from Europe, and from the United States is not in the interest of the Georgian people. The Georgian people have overwhelmingly said that their future is a future with Europe and with the West, and actions and statements that isolate Georgia don't help that goal. I want to reiterate once again that there is no stronger supporter in the world than the United States for the Georgian people and for the Georgian people's Euro-Atlantic integration. We will continue to support the Georgian people and continue to help make Georgia a stronger, more economically prosperous country that will be a member of the EU. And statements that try to isolate Georgia from the United States aren't helpful for anybody.
On September 18th, at the initiative of the EU-Georgia Business Council, EUGBC, the U.S. Ambassador to Georgia, Robin Donohue, met with representatives of the business sector. The event was attended by the EUGBC member and partner companies. The discussion touched upon the cooperation between the two countries and the assistance provided by the U.S. to Georgia over the past decades with an aim to strengthen democracy and the rule of law and promote economic development. The EUGBC Secretary General emphasized the importance of the Middle Corridor as the key trade road connecting Europe and Asia and the active engagement of the Black Sea Platform Initiative in this endeavor. Let's take a look at what Natia Taktakishvili has pulled together for this week's business news and outlook.
Company Aversi plans to develop a new multifunctional medical, educational and commercial facility on Qazbegi Avenue, where the infectious disease hospital is located now. Aversi has already applied to the Agency of Transport and Urban Development. According to the document, the project provides setting up 3 buildings. The first 35-story building will include a medical complex, a hotel for medical tourists and administrative part of the company. The second 6-story building will be a hospital, while the third 10-story building will be a university and campus for students. Beata Kurtanidze, the founder of pharmaceutical company Aversi, told BMDG a few months ago that the area of the Aversi building where the infectious disease hospital has been functioning until now would be used only for medical purposes after its transfer to the new building. The infectious disease hospital located on Qazbegi Avenue has been in private ownership since 2009. Its owner is Aversi Pharma, which purchased the mentioned area from the state for $12.5 million USD 12 years ago, but despite this, the owner cannot use the existing building. Askaneli has opened a new wine factory in the village of Kobakhidze municipality. The company reported on its Facebook page. According to the Askaneli, up to 16,000 tons of grapes will be processed in a new enterprise. We are happy to inform you about opening of the Askaneli winery in the beautiful village of Kobakhidze municipality. The factory, equipped with modern technologies, can receive and process up to 16,000 tons of grapes, the statement reads. The announcement also states that the reception of wine grapes has already started at the Kobakhidze enterprise. The founder of Askaneli, Kobakhidze, spoke about the new factory in Business Week on BMG TV and noted that the enterprise planned to process up to 9,000 tons of grapes this year. Kobakhidze did not specify the investment value of a new enterprise. However, according to Georgi Darchiashvili, representative of Tbilisi Bank, the bank allocated a loan of more than 50 million lari in total for Askaneli between 2023 and 2024. Whistle Group opened another restaurant of Subway after signing the exclusive franchise agreement with the company. A new restaurant was opened at Whistle gas station on the right bank of Tbilisi. Currently, 12 Subway restaurants are operating in Tbilisi, while 5 in the regions. By the end of the year, Subway chain will be represented with 20 restaurants. Based on the exclusive franchise agreement with Subway International BV, Whistle Group will be open 80 Subway restaurants in Georgia over the next years. The president of Whistle Group, Kobakhidze, attended the official opening of a new restaurant. Subway is developing in Georgia at a record pace jointly with Whistle Group. American brands will be available in all major cities in Georgia very soon. Together with Subway, we have common values in offering quality, healthy and freshly prepared products. Long-term experience of managing restaurants of American brands in Georgia gave us the opportunity to fully consider the demands and wishes of the local customers and make this service even faster and accessible to everyone. Kiwi Guetadze, the executive director of Wendy's, Dunkin's and Subway, said Whistle Group is represented with 121 restaurants under the legendary brands Subway, Wendy's and Dunkin' since 2013. The company has been the largest player in the country's restaurant industry and one of the largest employers. Foreign customers like our wine very much, but we need to work on promotion, Georgi Skhetladze, the founder of wineries Tony and Meliton, told BMG TV. According to him, they are actively working in exporting direction and are already represented in more than 10 countries. We are actively working in terms of exports. We export wine to more than 10 countries. They like Georgian wines made with traditional methods, but Georgian wine still needs help, as it is still new product for the world. Therefore, work is needed in terms of promotion. We distribute our wines in all countries and try to simplify the sales process for exporters. We are involved in this as much as possible. As for the production volume, it will remain stable. Tony produces over 40,000 bottled wines, while Mental up to 200,000 bottles. Finally, we exported our wine to Great Britain this year, says Skhetladze. Borjomi Holder Company has submitted a financial report for 2023. According to the document, the group increased its income by $21 million to $436 million. However, last year the company made a profit for the first time after the Russian sanctions, which amounted to $85.5 million. Borjomi Mineral Water is part of international holding, and its holder company, Risa Investment Limited, is registered in Cyprus. The group produces fresh and mineral waters of Borjomi, Likani, Bakuriani, Svetloy Istochnik and Moroshinsky. According to the report submitted to the Russian Financial Regulation, its main source of revenue during 2023 was sale to the Russian Federation, which amounted to $300 million. Georgia is in second place with the sales of $35 million. Kazakhstan ranks third with $33 million. Belarus is fourth and Ukraine is the fifth. The total assets of Borjomi Holding amounts to $410 million. Baya Buladze, the founder of Baya's Wine, declares that Northern European countries are actively interested in companies' products, which helps them to develop on the exporting markets. Export is a very important and encouraging part of our winemaking. Denmark is one of the last countries that joined our exporting markets, and I would like to point out that the countries of Central and Eastern Europe are particularly actively interested in our wines, which is very gratifying, says Baya Buladze. Along with Denmark, China joined the exporting markets of Baya's wine. The founder of the company notes that about 600 bottles of different types have been sent to Denmark and 1,200 bottles to China. Wine has already been sent to China and Denmark, and we hope that by the end of the year we will have orders from these two countries as well as from other 14 exporting markets that we are actively working on now, says Baya Buladze. Speaking about the news, the founder of Baya's Wine also noted that their plant was retooled this year, which helped the company to maintain stability and quality. Baya's Wine has been operating on the market since 2015 and offers 7 types of wine to customers. The company's factory is located in Opcha village of Baghdati, and its annual production volume is about 18,000 bottles of wine. Revaz Vashakidze, founder of poultry company Chirina, declares that the company plans to produce sausages, nuggets and other products this year. In addition, Chirina announces more active operations in Azerbaijan and Armenia. Revaz Vashakidze spoke about this during his visit to TV program Business Morning. This year we finished the investment project. The company built a meat processing plant, and now we can produce 27,000 tons of chicken. The company still has big plans. This applies to the production of sausages, nuggets and many other products. In the next 2 years, we want to sell our products on foreign markets, which will increase the profitability of our company. Chirina plans to enter Armenia as well as Azerbaijan. We want to export these products not only to the European Union but also Asia, says Revaz Vashakidze. Chirina is one of the largest agricultural enterprises in Georgia. The company has been operating on the market since 2010 and for this period managed to establish itself as leading food producing company in the country. Development company Next will build a new complex in Old Batumi. The new project Next Downtown is a residential complex inspired by the centuries-old heritage of the country, creating an environment that feels like traveling back into old times. The project is distinguished by the historical facade. The exterior will have stained glass windows and modern elements, thus emphasizing the intersection of European and Georgian styles. The exclusive residential complex includes a limited number of apartments. Next Downtown features premium infrastructure, commercial spaces and a common terrace. The construction of the project will be completed in 2026. Next Downtown is the first project in Batumi which will not only bring new life to the historical district of the city, but also restore its cultural significance and demonstrate one of the main values of Next, which serves to create a better future based on the past experience.
Georgian startups and companies are expanding internationally faster than ever, with an increasing number of venture investors entering the Georgian market, signaling the continuous development of the Georgian startup ecosystem. Startup Green Tbilisi has been selected as one of the network's 20 flagship chapters. The hosts of BMG's Tech Inform, Georgi Aronia and Georgi Tolordava, discussed this success with the chapter director of Startup Green Tbilisi, Colin Donohue.
Colin, hi. Let's start our interview with the exclusive that Startup Grind Tbilisi has been named as one of 20 flagship chapters within Startup Grind ecosystem. What does this mean for Georgian startup ecosystem?
Well, I think it's a reminder of the role that the Tbilisi chapter and now the Batumi chapter have in the Startup Grind global ecosystem. We are one of the most famous chapters in the world. And in 2019, we were the most successful chapter in the world with the big conference here, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of interest globally that we've created. During that 2019 event, we brought for the first time Bill Riker, Marvin Lau, so on and so forth. And then through the years, we brought other folks like Steve Torres, who's also in town. And we've really built bridges with Silicon Valley. And now we're building bridges more into the East. So we have the country director of Startup Grind Japan, who manages 3 chapters, including Tokyo. He's a Forbes contributor in Japan, which is a huge market. He does venture scouting for various venture funds, mentors a lot of accelerators. He's an incredibly well-connected person in Japan. I mean, when you look at who's more connected, there aren't a lot of people who are that much more connected in the startup ecosystem. We also have the chapter director from Dubai, who's a real force of nature. He has his own venture fund as well as doing a lot of advisory. He's advising the largest tech conference in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, as well as his work in Dubai. So he recommends speakers. He partners with folks in the Gulf at a very high level. And my friend Curtis, who runs the Singapore Startup Grind chapter, which is an incredibly important location. Actually, right now there's a huge crypto event that a lot of Georgians are at, and he happens to be here. He opens doors to Singapore and to Taiwan, actually, where he spends a lot of time. So the main concept is that, Georgia is at the crossroads of a lot of chapters internationally. In 2020, we had 100 chapters partner with us on a conference, and we're really thinking maybe we should do something like that again.
Colin, let me ask you for context. What is Startup Grind? How big of a network it is? And could you bring an example of how Startup Grind contributed to development of, in general, startup ecosystem, be it in the US where it was founded or all around the world?
Sure. Yeah, so Startup Grind is the largest global network of startups in the world. I mean, there is no larger startup network. At its height, I think there were 600 chapters. I don't know now, maybe 500 or something after COVID. But things are, again, increasing. So it's really sort of a global network and a global community, because it's not just a transactional thing where people are all hustling and trying to take advantage of people. It's more about creating an openness where you learn about people, you find how you can help them, and they're the 3 key values, right? There's help others, give first, and make friends. And so we've seen that this is a driving force between international partnerships, right? I mean, you have, for example, the chapter, or the country lead in Israel works with folks, in different Arabic countries, right? And they're building bridges. They're bringing people together. There's a lot of work also on connecting founders with investors, with markets, so on and so forth. But it's really about taking the time to build relationships, get to know each other, build trust, and then take action. And so we've had some nice successes from Georgia. I mean, you may remember that the Pulsar met their co-founder when we brought them to Startup Grind. Fubber got Eugene, who was one of the early people at WhatsApp, as angel investor as a result of those relationships. There are folks who made connections in London as well. So there are a number of tangible investment relationships and market-driven relationships that are there. But I believe that the potential is really under-leveraged. It's underdeveloped, right? Because there's this incredible network, but right now, people aren't engaging with those chapters in the different cities when they go to the US. They're not engaging with London and Dubai and these different places. So I think that there's a way to increase the reach of Georgian founders internationally if we can embrace the potential of the network.
Colin, let's talk about Startup Grind's presence in Georgia. We already touched upon the details, but I want to ask you specifically about the case of Pulsar AI, because it was the biggest and the first Georgian exit, and how I remember it, then it always, of course, began in Georgia, but then the main connections happened on a Startup Grind event in the US as well. And so, because the founders met some important investors there. Could you recount the story and tell me what role did the Startup Grind play in all of that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we talk a lot about Pulsar, and there are a lot of factors. There was a small piece that we played. Basically, the thing about Startup Grind is it inspired a Georgian group to go there. So, Yotukashvili, who many people know, and Nicholas Gogachuri, and Nika Abashidze from Karu. So a number of people went on this first trip. And so the Startup Grind general event was important, but also doing a side event where we connected with Georgian diaspora, Georgians in the Bay Area who are like serious investors or entrepreneurs. And at the time, there was a guy who had just raised $50 million from Goldman Sachs for his startup, which was valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And a friend of a friend got him to come, basically brought him to the Airbnb where we were to meet the startups and so on and so forth. And there were some great people there. Zaza Patchouli was there, and he met the Pulsar guys and the other folks. So it's partly the event itself, and then it's partly gathering small groups of people together around that, right? And so like now, we have different people who are in Georgia for different things. So like John from Japan is going to DataFest, Stephen Torres is going to Irakli Abashidze's thing. So there are different people who are in town, and then what we like to do is just get serious people together to spend some time, get to know each other, and work together. So it's really, Startup Grind creates an excuse for folks to connect and have that good feeling of community, I think.
Colin, as we know, other chapter directors are visiting Georgia currently, and there was also an event held recently. Which were main subjects and themes of this event, and how would you evaluate it?
Yeah. Well, one big piece of what we wanted to share was inspired by my friend Curtis, who's worked with startups a lot on international marketing and fundraising. And he really likes to emphasize the importance of story. Like when you do a pitch, you're not making a legal case with data, right? What you're really trying to do is capture the imagination and capture the heart, especially with angel investors who are just putting their own resources into something. It's not a commercial fund. It's their hobby. It's their passion, right? Often you need to inspire them to want to go on this journey with you. And that's really what motivates them. They may not be sophisticated about the numbers. Venture math is very difficult for people to get a handle on. So you really need to capture their imagination and their hearts and want them to want to be with you on the journey. One of the other things was just talking about the different ecosystems, because there are so many things going on right now in Singapore. And it's a very important place for Georgian startups to know about, not just Silicon Valley, not just London, but it's important for people to have a map of what are the hot spots and what's good for different things. So Singapore is very important. Dubai, so close. So close. I mean, we had an event just a few weeks ago in Batumi. We had 3 investors from Dubai just popped over to learn from some of the Silicon Valley VCs we brought to town, and they want to come back, right? And so I think it's very easy to develop these relationships with folks when you can host them and when you can go visit them at their places. So it was a lot about learning about Dubai, learning about Japan, learning about Singapore. And it's so interesting because Japan is an enormous economy. They have so much money, really. They have so much deep technology. But the entrepreneurship spirit is not the same. And so Georgia, even though there's not the money, even though there's not the deep technology, the spirit and the hustle and the creativity, that is a place where Georgians and Japanese, maybe there's some synergies, right? Maybe you have a CTO who's a Japanese scientist, and maybe you have the marketing person as a Georgian person who can paint the picture, tell the story, inspire people to be part of it. I don't know. Maybe it'll never happen. Maybe it will happen. But I think just exploring the needs of different ecosystems. And there's a founder who I really like, David Khosroshvili, who's had, even though no big sort of startup things, but he's had a number of different companies. And I interviewed him for Startup Grind years and years ago. And the thing that for him that was his breakthrough and his recommendation is get on a plane. Him getting on a plane and going to Chile changed his mindset. It opened up connections. It opened up his world. And so I think founders, especially who haven't worked overseas or lived overseas, very, very important to just show up in different places and feel the air and feel the way the world is different. Because you want to be a global founder, you have to develop this perspective, this global perspective.
Colin, let's talk about recent developments and in particular Startup World Cup, where Tel Aviv was crowned as a winner. How would you evaluate this situation, and what does this mean for Georgia?
We've done this for several years, I think maybe 5 years total. The first ones, it was not very strong competition. This year was extremely strong competition. The last 5 competitors were almost at the same level, which was a very high level. The judges were very impressed. So I think with Anuki's success internationally, last year the competitor made it to the finals, the world finals, top 10. I think we are really building a reputation among these hundreds of investors and other people in Silicon Valley as a place to watch.
Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time and for the interesting interview.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And on to some main economic trends in our short overview.
Andrew Jewell, resident representative for Georgia at International Monetary Fund, declares that banks should not face a situation of ambiguity regarding their legal and compliance obligations and should be clearly able to assess the implications of these obligations for their operations. The National Bank of Georgia on Wednesday highlighted its systematic supervision of implementation of international sanctions as well as the enforcement of compliance to its own regulations and national legislation by individual participants of domestic financial sector. The central bank emphasized that Georgia was operating in full compliance with the requirements stipulated by sanctions and asserted that the country had never been and will never become a place to evade sanctions. As we have said before, under its mandate, IMF staff does not assess compliance with international sanctions and staff may not advise the authorities on whether to comply or not with international sanctions. We of course may assess the macroeconomic and financial implication of sanctions compliance or non-compliance and advise countries to take measures to mitigate the risk. In this context, in order to ensure that financial stability is protected, banks should not face a situation of ambiguity regarding their legal and compliance obligations and should be clearly able to assess the implications of these obligations for their operations. Andrew Jewell, resident representative for Georgia at International Monetary Fund, said. On September 16, U.S. Department of the State Treasury sanctioned to Georgian officials head of Ministry of Internal Affairs Special Task Department Sued Kharazishvili and his deputy Milari Lagazauri, as well as 2 other, Konstantin Morgoshia and Zurab Makharadze. The U.S. State Department also imposed visa restrictions on more than 60 Georgian individuals and their family members responsible for or complicate in undermining democracy in Georgia. Our primary task is to sustain a high economic growth rate for which all necessary conditions are in place. It's crucial to address the current situation in the country, stated Irakli Kobakhidze, Prime Minister of Georgia, during a business association conference. Kobakhidze highlighted the positive dynamics of economic growth over the past 4 years, reflecting on the challenges faced since 2012. Unemployment has dramatically improved from 21.9% in early 2021 to 3.7% in the second quarter of 2024. During this time, we created 146,000 new jobs. Wage has risen from 1,200 lari to over 2,000 lari. These figures reflect the success of our economic growth strategy, Kobakhidze stated. He further mentioned the country's positive dynamics in fiscal consolidation, noting 12.5% increase in production output and a 10.3% rise in foreign direct investment. Fiscal metrics such as foreign debt, inflation, the current account deficit and the budget deficit are all below target levels, providing a strong foundation for sustained economic growth, he added. Tbilisi Mayor Kobakhidze has announced the launch of a new phase of Learn and Get Employed program set to run until October 1. Now in its fifth year, this initiative has successfully trained approximately 10,000 citizens, boosting an impressive employment success rate of around 70%. This complementary program provides professional training and retraining for Tbilisi residents aged 18 and older, tailored to meet market demands and developed in partnership with the private sector to enhance employment opportunities. In this phase, up to 1,000 participants will receive training in roughly 60 specialist construction, engineering, information technology, tourism, healthcare and finance specializations. 11 new fields have also been introduced, including training in solar system installation, artificial intelligence tools and fitness instructors. Training will be delivered through a combination of theoretical and practical approaches, available both online and on-site, with durations ranging from 1 to 7 months. Participants can access the programs through various colleges in Tbilisi, including Donohue Vocational Training Center and Spectrum. In Q2 2024, the nominal gross domestic product amounted to 22 million lari. The real GDP increased by 9.6% year-on-year, while GDP deflator percentage change equaled to 2.5%, according to the National Statistics Office of Georgia. As of the document, significant contribution to the real GDP growth in Q2 2024 is related to increase of value added of the following activities: wholesale and retail trade, repair of motor vehicles and motorcycles, accommodation and food service activities, education, manufacturing, construction, transportation and storage. A decrease in the real value added occurred in electricity, gas, steam and air conditioning supply, other service activities. The largest share in GDP by activity is held by trade and real estate activities, followed by manufacturing, construction, public administration, agriculture, forestry and fishing, education, transportation and storage. During a panel discussion at Georgian Business Association's conference in Tbilisi, First Vice Prime Minister and Minister of Economy and Sustainable Development Levon Davitashvili emphasized the government's commitment to enhancing transparent and logistic infrastructure, transport and logistic infrastructure. He highlighted significant advancements in this area, identified key flagship projects that are expected to transform the country's development. These projects include the Anaklia Port Project, railway modernization, the East-West Expressway, the Black Sea Submarine Cable Project, and further logistic infrastructure initiatives. These efforts will not only sustain positive trends in the warehousing sector but yield significant results, Davitashvili stated. He also pointed out the importance of new Tbilisi International Airport, which aims to meet rising demands in the tourist sector. Davitashvili noted the emergence of new service sector contributing to economic growth, particularly in information technology, which saw nearly $800 million in exports in 2023. He expressed optimism that this figure would surpass $1 billion this year. This sector has unique dynamics and is knowledge-driven, essential for strengthening the country across various areas, he said. The government has taken significant steps to enhance accessibility to oncology services, a trend that should continue, stated Georgia's Minister of Health Mikhail Sarjoladze during the presentation of report on accessibility to oncology service in Georgia. According to Minister, funding for oncology services has increased fivefold in recent years, reaching hundreds of millions of lari. This trend must persist until every patient is satisfied with received care. The current trajectory is promising, and our efforts aim to ensure that economic growth benefits the social projects we value. I am particularly pleased that today's presentations coincides with World Patient Safety Day. He emphasized in the realm of oncology, the safety, interest, health and lives of patients are of utmost importance. World Patient Safety Day, observed annually on September 17, was established by the World Health Organization. Mariam Krivishvili, Deputy Economy Minister of Georgia, on Thursday said the entry of EasyJet, a British budget airline set to launch direct flights from London, Geneva and Milan to Tbilisi in 2025 signified a great recognition of country and was a particularly important message for the European tourist market. Another strong international airline brand is coming to Georgia, which will enhance the country's visibility and boost its tourism industry, she said. The Deputy Minister also outlined plans for very active marketing campaign in the UK, Switzerland and Italy to attract more tourists to Georgia in collaboration with partner airlines. We are sure we will already see increased tourist flows from the mentioned countries from March 2025. Aviation is a complex sector and our team has been working with partners on this topic for quite some time. We are glad that we have successfully concluded the negotiation, Krivishvili said. EasyJet currently serves over 1,000 destinations in 35 countries, transporting 83 million passengers and generating annual revenue equivalent to $10.8 billion USD in 2023, the Ministry of Economy said. The Georgian government approved the 2024-2026 Air Quality Management Plan for Tbilisi. The Ministry of Environment Protection and Agriculture reported the plan, prepared with the support of the European Union and the engagement of the Tbilisi City Hall, government institutions, parliament and civil society, aims to control air pollution and comprises various activities to improve the air quality in Georgia's capital city. Development of atmospheric air quality management plans is the best practice for solving the problem of air pollution in EU countries, said the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Agriculture.
ADB is helping raise awareness about PPPs. This week, ADB hosted a presentation of main findings of the Public-Private Partnership Monitor. This publication provides information on the PPP business environment in 9 ADB developing member countries to help public sector policymakers improve private sector participation in infrastructure projects.
We are here to, of course, showcase what are the findings of the PPP Monitor. And PPP Monitor is a flagship publication of the Asian Development Bank. It gives and highlights, all the upstream regulations and also the environment for PPP, so that then it enables private sector and also the government to work together. Financing, delivering, structuring a lot of these projects is a complex matter. We've been working, ADB has been working with the government. I think setting up the PPP agency was also critical to that milestone. There's more to be done. The capacity is important. It is critical because these are long-dated transactions. They are very legalistic in nature. And so therefore, both parties need to have that capacity to be able to work that long term. Now, effectiveness, that takes time. And that's why ADB is here, ready to support any progress or even capacity development for the PPP sector, because we do want PPP to flourish here, and we do want private sector to come in to the country and really push the economic agenda. As we identified in the PPP Monitor, it's very nascent in terms of the PPP, and that's why event like this creates some awareness. And we do want to attract different parties to come to the table and work with the government. ADB is ready to support the government in pushing this agenda, and we're happy to give more capacity building support, of course, to the PPP agency, which would be central to this. There's, of course, in tandem with the fiscal risk management that comes with engaging with the private sector on PPP. It's a good starting point. There's a lot of challenges, and this is what we're highlighting today in this findings of the PPP Monitor. But we will work together. Projects that it will be across the board. I think transport we've highlighted. The energy has been very popular actually in PPP. Majority of the PPP transactions that has been identified have largely been in energy. But the funding requirements for other critical public infrastructure should go beyond energy. And that's why we are here again to sort of push that dimension. The social sector is an important one. Health, education, these are important. The water utilities, that's also important in the overall development of the government and its people. The core recommendations that we've identified is that, we need to do more in terms of the capacity. As I mentioned, PPP is, highly transactional. It is a very long-dated, engagement. So therefore, the capacity to put together transactions, the capacity to understand what are the risks involved, and overall how we can drive value for money in these transactions, because it just doesn't benefit the two parties, but I think in the end, it's the people that benefits from the delivery of such infrastructure.
In October, ADB will hold a specialist training course on PPPs for senior government officials to help address the capacity gaps and contribute towards building a pipeline of projects. ADB is also undertaking a feasibility assessment on affordable housing to explore PPP opportunities, and is also in early discussion with various government agencies to help screen and prepare potential pilot PPP projects. Next week, you will watch an exclusive sit-down interview with Adrian Director, Special Initiatives and Funds Office of Markets Development and Public-Private Partnership at ADB. Until next Sunday, and of course stay tuned on BM.G for more news and updates in business and economics in Georgia, in the region and beyond.
The Checkpoints is presented by pharmaceutical company GM Pharma.